question that people really are talking about is, how do we save democracy?
What would the mechanics of that look like? So we're getting this brand new awareness, wider spread. How would that translate into putting the brakes on Trump?
Well,
I think
the way to do that, I mean, Trump, remember, we're dealing with somebody who tried an attempted coup against the United States. Someone who called up state secretaries of state and governors and said, give me certain amounts of votes after the 2020 election. Someone who was actively intimidating state electors. Somebody who was telling his vice president, I want you not to certify this election. In other words, we're dealing with somebody who has absolutely zero respect for democratic institutions. Zero. We have coming up a midterm election. In midterm elections, the party that occupies the White House almost always loses the House and the Senate. I mean, even if you had the best president you could imagine. Donald Trump knows that. And what is Donald Trump doing? He is plotting another coup. What are the aspects, what are the elements of that coup? Number one, he's calling up red state governors and saying, I want you to gerrymander like mad. Number two, he's saying, okay, I'm going to do trial runs of getting the Army and the National Guard in control of Democratic-run cities, where most of the Democratic voters are. And I want to intimidate. I want to see how far I can go in intimidating people. And number three, he is beginning to plot how he can basically stop mail-in ballots and take over election machinery. Now, all this is being reported, but it's not being reported as it should be, holistically. That this is the man who we know after 2020 tried to overthrow this country. This is what he is planning to do for 2026. This needs to be seen as a whole. And I think that the Democratic Party, let's not even talk about the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party, in my experience, is mainly a big fundraising machine. And that's good. I mean, we need a fundraising machine. I would prefer that we didn't have to do a fundraising, but it's not like a political party was maybe 40 years ago. It doesn't have the kind of grassroots element you need. But I think that what we need to do, we are the leaders we've been waiting for. I think many of you need to do it here in Houston. We need to do it all over this country. We need to stop these three attacks on our democratic small d process. And we see them beginning. We need to stop it through the courts. We need to stop it in terms of our own legislators, state and federal. If they're Democratic legislators, we have to make sure they know that we're watching. If they're Republican legislators, we've got to appear at their town halls, and we've got to be very, very vocal about what is happening and what we expect from them, or we're not going to vote for them again. And we need to use the power we have, the power of boycotts. I think people don't understand the extent to which a boycott of certain companies and products can be very, very powerful. Look at Tesla or Home Depot, I could give you a number of companies, because I was at the Federal Trade Commission years ago. I dealt with a lot of these companies, and as Secretary of Labor, I dealt with a lot of these companies. These companies are highly, highly dependent on their public image, their brands. They don't want those brands tarnished. A boycott is hugely important. And finally, I think we need to, and we can, exercise far more power than we are in terms of expressing ourselves nationally. Now, some of the things that have happened, many of you might have been involved in the June 14th exercises, the No King's Day. That was actually beautifully done because it was decentralized. And the press is starting to get it. The press is starting to report on these decentralized demonstrations. We don't want centralized demonstrations. Thank goodness the progressives around the country have not all gone to Washington to protest what Trump is doing in terms of taking over Washington. That would play into his hands. Then he could, declare the Insurrection Act applicable, and he could pull out even more troops. No, the decentralized protests are very, very important.
It seems to me these protests, these decentralized protests, affect congressmen. We only need to flip, 3 or 4 people, say, in the House, so it turns Democrats. Congress people are are mostly survivalists.
They're mostly survivalists, but the Republican members of Congress have been so intimidated by the possibility of being primaried by somebody on their right. And Trump has credibly, and Trump with some of the money that he's now pulled in, has credibly threatened to primary these people. Now, that threat of being primaried has got to be countered by our threat that if they don't act responsibly, we're not going to vote for them, or we're going to vote for their opponents.